What tips would you give your fellow brothers and sisters on the spectrum in terms of success? You know, what is it they need to know to be more successful in getting employed?
One of my first heroes was the mathematician Archimedes. And there's a famous story. I don't know whether it's true or not. I mean, it's very hard to, tell. But the story is that soldiers came in and they were threatening to kill him. And he was working on one of his projects. And instead of even caring about his life, he said, "Do not disturb my circles." And I would say that the best kind of job that you can hope to find is someplace that will let you do what you're interested in, that will not disturb your circles, that will let you work on the things that you really care a great deal about, and we'll kind of leave you alone. We'll understand if you don't necessarily want to go to lots of meetings, a lot of parties. We'll understand your need to be alone. We'll understand that, I don't know about the rest of the people on the panel, but I can't think of anything much more terrifying than overstimulation. I mean, even at my age, if you put me behind a counter at a drugstore, I'd have a meltdown within an hour. I mean, I just can't deal with that many different faces, that many different needs. So being an administrator in an orchestra was very tough for me. I'm much happier now that I can be a squirrely little professor and go into my office and hide there until my class. And I get along very well with my students, and then just go off and do my own thing. So I think that for most of you will be something like that will be the way your children or you will be happiest.
Just like with anybody else, find your strengths, because that's where you'll be happy. Find your strengths, look for your characteristics, what are your abilities, what are your interests, and everybody, whether they have Asperger's syndrome or not, if you're working in an area that you're good at, if you're working in an area of strength that matches your personality, whatever it might be, whether it's a squirrely little professor, as you say, and some of us do like to interact with people, but how we interact with people, such as a professor, that's very important to understand. And the same goes with everybody else. So why are we talking about people on the autism spectrum? Because there is a difference. And that has to do with intensity. There's stuff we're good at, we're incredibly good at. The stuff we're not good at, well, how can you be so dumb and so smart at the same time? And workplaces tend to not tolerate that type of stuff, unfortunately. So we need greater awareness in the workplace as well. The biggest challenge that I see in finding employment for those of us on the spectrum has to do with the gatekeeper interview. One of the most social things anybody can do is to undergo a job interview. Talk about hidden curriculum, unwritten rules. What do you do when the interviewer says, "Well, I'm going to go find a few things in my file, and why don't you have a seat while I pull these things out?" Well, no. The interviewer has to sit down first. That's the rule. I'm not going to sit down until you sit down. We tend to be rule-based. So the portfolio method, whenever possible, I find is the best way. Portfolio method, people who know you, people who can get you an in. I was using the portfolio method as a teenager when I realized that bicycle repair was my forte, and bicycle repair is where I needed to be, not working in busy, noisy restaurants where I'd have meltdowns. And that just didn't work. And I'd go from shop to shop on my custom-made bicycle that I built from the spokes and ball bearings up, find the manager, nerd into my bicycle with the manager, and then eventually ask him for a job. Well, what about all those hidden curriculum rules about making eye contact with the interviewer, shaking their hand, and having small talk conversation before you get started? Well, all of that's gone because we're focused on the bicycle. We're focused on the object of work, as opposed to all the small talk beforehand. And then when it came time for me to ask for a job, he already knew that I knew my way around bicycles. So the portfolio method, having people who know you, who can get you through the proverbial back door, even my university job, I came through that way, where a woman that I barely recognized, as I said, I don't recognize anybody, she just comes to me and says, "We have an opening in our department. I think you'd fit. Here's my email address. Email me." And that got me into the university job. Of course, I had to do the interview, but by the time the interview came, they had done their research, and there was none of this fancy toe tapping, which is another area of discussion, of disclosure, and why they might want to hire a person with autism as opposed to somebody who doesn't have autism to teach courses on autism. We could get into the nitty-gritty of being a professor and my teaching ability. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen.
But the key is find people who believe in you. The folks who really taught me everything weren't the education people. They were the people out there in the industry. The people like Walter Gray, who was a food photographer in Chicago, or Josh Dreyfus, who was a children's fashion photographer. I mean, these are people who I learned everything by, who believed in me deeply and passionately. A guy named Jim Cudney, who runs a company named Techno Tribe Communications, web development. He gave me my first job as a producer-director when he had a different company. And they would forgive me for my foibles because my strengths in this arena are so incredibly strong. And so they could handle all of that stuff. Now, they often wouldn't let me talk to clients, but that's okay, you know. And the other part of it is recognize where your deficiencies are. You know, if you don't have to be a professor. You do not have to be a teacher. You can be self-employed. I'm a terrible businessman. I can't do the numbers, but I got a brilliant wife who understands how to handle that stuff. Find that support network that will help you take care of you.
So lots of choices, that's a wonderful thing, and it totally paralyzes us. So that means you need to help direct us. That's not your choosing our career, but it is helping to direct us and give us help us to develop a specific trajectory for our own lives. Too many open-ended questions and possibilities is, well, just too many. Second thing is to those on the spectrum, yes, self-advocate, it does. It means speak up for yourself, and that's okay, but that doesn't mean demand and stomp your feet and, you know, be argumentative and difficult. What it simply means is be clear and succinct and say, all right, here's all the things I'm going to offer you, portfolio, show it, and then say, here, before a problem happens, and by the way, if there's ever a time that I say or do something that seems abrupt or short or rude or off-putting or just that you don't quite get, please do me the favor of asking me, because I can promise you I didn't mean it. And I'd love to know about that, and so I can do it differently a different time. Right there, you're showing humility, you're showing the interest that you would rather learn and grow than be right, and you're putting it out there so that if it does happen, you've kind of got that insurance ahead of time. I've done that. That has made a huge difference. When I didn't do it, I didn't know to do it. Bad stuff. And so for the sake of time, just remember this. A candle does not lose any of its light by lighting another, which means that in whatever you're doing, don't feel compelled to constantly be the one who's receiving everyone's focus. Generally, we're criticized because it seems like we want everyone's attention. We want all the attention all the time. No, what that is us saying we need affirmation because we get lots of negative feedback. We need the volume turned up, perhaps on the positive too. But that does mean remembering for us that the others, it's okay to let other people be wonderful at what they do. That doesn't make you any less wonderful at what you do.